Last night's episode of CrossTalk Tonight may go down as one of the most explosive moments in modern talk show history. The liberal-leaning political commentary show, hosted by veteran firebrand Declan Hart, was already on shaky ground, going into its live taping. But nothing could have prepared viewers for the verbal cage match that unfolded when special guest and current U.S. President Donald J. Trump took his seat across from the notoriously provocative host. The segment started, off deceptively civil. Declan, dressed in his signature black turtleneck and armed with a stack of notes thicker than usual, opened the show with pleasantries and a forced smile. President Trump, wearing a navy suit and red tie, clearly relishing the attention, flashed his trademark smirk and offered up a few self-deprecating remarks about being the most overbooked man in the country. But the niceties didn't last long. Roughly 10 minutes in, Declan pivoted sharply, discarding his cue cards and leaning forward in his seat with the kind of over-rehearsed intensity that telegraphed something big was coming. Then came the accusation, wild, baseless, and clearly intended to provoke. "Mr. President, would you care to address the claims that you deliberately defunded the National Trans Youth Housing Initiative in retaliation for that viral TikTok video last year where a transgender activist called you Grandpa Cheeto?" There was a moment of stunned silence. Even Trump seemed thrown off by the sheer absurdity of the charge. He blinked twice before letting out a slow, almost amused chuckle. "Is this real?" he asked, glancing off stage as though looking for confirmation that he hadn't been punked. "You brought me here to talk about TikTok and something I never even heard of." Declan didn't back down. "You're dodging the question, Mr. President. The funding was slashed within a week of that video going viral. Coincidence? Or retaliation against the trans community?" Trump's demeanor hardened. "No. What's happening here is you want to get a little moment, a little clip to go viral on X or TikTok or whatever platform you people cry on these days. You're making things up, completely fake." But Declan was just getting started. He pulled up a graphic on the screen behind them that appeared to show a sharp drop in federal allocations to LGBTQ+ housing programs in the previous fiscal quarter. "This isn't fake," he said, voice rising. "You cut the funding and then doubled down by inviting a known anti-trans activist to speak at the White House. Don't play dumb." Trump didn't blink. "The only dumb thing happening is this." Interview. "You're calling me transphobic over TikTok beef? This is what you call journalism? You know why people don't watch shows like this anymore? Because it's all fake drama and fake news." The audience, a carefully balanced crowd of supporters and critics, began to shift uncomfortably. A few groans and laughs echoed through the studio. Declan, sensing the loss of the upper hand, pushed harder. "I'm calling you transphobic because your administration has repeatedly rolled back protections for trans Americans. That's not drama. That's fact." Trump leaned in, lowering his voice. "You don't care about facts. You care about pushing your own failing brand. You know how many ratings you had last month? I've seen community theater do better numbers." That jab visibly rattled Declan. His lips tightened, but he pressed forward, shifting the conversation to a second accusation that nearly derailed the entire segment. "And let's talk about that Juneteenth dinner," Declan said, eyes gleaming. "Can you explain why you made a toast quoting a segregation-era governor and said, quote, 'He had some ideas that weren't all wrong'?" The audience gasped. Trump snapped his head toward the host. "That's a lie. That quote is made up. I said, and this is on video, that era had a lot of problems we've worked hard to fix. You twisted that into some ridiculous race-baiting headline because that's all you do." Declan interrupted. "It's not twisted. It's offensive. You toasted a man who once said," but Trump cut him off, voice booming now. "You don't even care if it's true. You've got some 19-year-old intern pulling quotes off Reddit and feeding them to you through that earpiece. You've got nothing." The audience was fully divided now, some shouting, others clapping, the tension palpable. Declan stood abruptly. So you deny it all? Every bit of it? You deny defunding a trans program for revenge? You deny quoting a segregationist during a dinner honoring Black Americans? What else do you deny? Gravity? Basic decency? Trump stood too, slower, composed. I deny you. I deny that this show has any real value beyond pushing narratives. I came here to talk about the economy, foreign policy, real issues. You brought Twitter fights and conspiracy theories. The two men stood face to face, both visibly seething, neither backing down. The producers could be seen signaling from behind the cameras, but neither the host nor the president were interested in stopping. And then, just as it seemed things might devolve into chaos, Trump dropped his final line of part one with surgical precision. You know what the difference is between you and me, Declan? I ran for office and won. You just run your mouth. Cut to black. But the cameras hadn't stopped rolling. In fact, inside the CrossTalk Tonight control room, the director was screaming into his headset, "We're still live. Don't cut feed." The broadcast returned, mid-shout, as President Trump and Declan Hart stood nose to nose under the studio, lights, the tension crackling like static. Declan, red-faced and breathing heavily, tried to wrest control of the moment. "Mr. President, if you're so offended by facts, maybe this isn't the platform for you. Maybe you prefer the comfort of pre-screened rallies where no one dares challenge your worldview." Trump didn't flinch. "You call this a challenge? I've faced tougher interviews from elementary school kids. You're not a journalist, you're a meme with a set." The audience roared, some with laughter, others in protest. Boos clashed with applause. One woman shouted, "You're a disgrace," from the back, while another yelled, "Let him speak." Declan tried to pivot to a closing segment, fumbling with his cue cards. "Let's move to the economy." But Trump raised his hand sharply, cutting him off without even glancing his way. "No, we're not moving on. You tried to ambush me with lies and garbage. Now you want to shift gears like nothing happened? Not a chance." The president turned to the crowd, now treating the studio like a campaign stop. "You all see what just happened here, right? You saw it." He accused the sitting president of the United States of defunding a trans program over a TikTok. That's where we are now. That's the level of discourse on this show. He pointed at Declan. This man doesn't care about trans rights. He doesn't care about racial justice. He cares about ratings. And when those tanked, he needed me to be the villain to get his numbers back up. Declan barked a laugh. "Oh, please, you're not a villain. You're a cartoon character with executive power. The only thing dangerous about you is your Twitter thumbs." Trump grinned, almost enjoying himself now. "Twitter? You still think I run my own Twitter? I've got interns who tweet in 5 languages while you're out here spending 15 hours in a makeup chair for a 10-point drop in viewership." Declan's hand slammed the desk. "This isn't a roast battle, Mr. President. You've been accused—" "By you," Trump snapped back, jabbing a finger at him. "You accuse, you twist, you clip. But here's what you don't do. You don't listen. You don't let your guests finish a sentence unless it fits your script." Declan tried to speak, but Trump kept going. "You called me a racist, a transphobe. You quoted a fake toast from a fake dinner with a fake quote, and you expected me to sit here and smile through it?" The host threw up his arms. "Your own administration's report listed the housing cuts, and your show edited out the part where I said we were reallocating those funds to mental health services for youth across the board, because you don't want solutions. You want sound bites." A long pause followed. Declan stared at him, momentarily speechless. Then Trump turned directly to the cameras, breaking the fourth wall like a seasoned showman. "Let this be a lesson to every American watching. When people scream the loudest, it's usually because they've got the least to say. They don't want to solve problems. They want to perform outrage." Declan finally regained composure, now resorting to controlled calm. "Mr. President, if you're done ranting, perhaps we can have a respectful close." Trump took a step back, unfastening his microphone with the slow deliberation of a man done playing by someone else's rules. "No need. You've had your moment, and it was a disaster." He looked once more at the host, voice low and deliberate. "Next time you invite a guest, try listening instead of labeling. You might actually learn something." Declan muttered something under his breath, but the mic didn't catch it. Trump smiled. "Thought so." Then, in full view of the audience, the cameras, and millions watching from home, President Donald J. Trump stepped out from behind the desk, waved once to the crowd, half cheering, half jeering, and walked off the set. No security detail, no handlers, just the sound of his shoes echoing off the studio floor. The studio fell into stunned silence. Declan sat there, lips parted, staring after him like he'd just watched the ending of a movie he didn't understand. The control room hesitated. Do they cut to commercial? Play outro music? Instead, the screen lingered awkwardly on Declan, who finally leaned into the mic and said, "Well, that was the President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. Draw your own conclusions." The screen finally faded to black. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Trump vs. Declan trended #1 worldwide. Clips of the confrontation went viral across every platform. Debates erupted. Was Declan exposing dangerous rhetoric, or had he been exposed as a shallow provocateur? Had Trump melted down or delivered a PR masterstroke? The fallout was swift. Morning pundit shows lit up with panel discussions. Cable news replayed the footage on loop. The White House issued a statement saying the president had walked away from a dishonest, agenda-driven media setup. Declan's production team, meanwhile, defended the interview as aggressive but necessary journalism. But the damage, or triumph, depending on who you asked, was already done. CrossTalk Tonight saw a 400% spike in viewership overnight. Declan Hart booked 2 more interviews just by breakfast. And President Trump? He held an impromptu rally the next afternoon, kicking off with, "You all saw that disaster last night. They tried to cancel me live, but we walked out stronger than ever." And the world moved on. But for 1 hour on live television, the clash between America's most divisive president and its most incendiary talk show host ignited a cultural firestorm that no one could ignore. The confrontation was real. The fallout, massive, and the mic, still on the desk.